Well, let me catch you using those Phillips screws for woodworking. Have you ever been part way through a project and you've actually heard this noise? Now, that doesn't mean you're no good at woodwork. What it means is you've just made a bad choice. So in this video, we're going to look at 4 different types of drive for screws. Okay, so drive 1 is called Phillips. Now, what Phillips is basically just like a cross on the top of the screw. But what a lot of people don't realize is Phillips screws weren't actually intended for woodwork. Phillips screws were invented around about a century ago in the 1930s, and they were actually invented for car production plants. And what they were invented for is so that when the screw got to the right torque, the driver would come out of the screw, which, if you don't know what come out means, it basically means the driver will jump out the screw rather than putting it in any further. So this is one of the reasons that Phillips screws aren't very good for woodwork, because as soon as that gets a little bit tough in that wood, it's going to come out. So they're brilliant for 1930s car production plants, but they're not so good for woodwork. So if you want my advice, steer well clear of Phillips screws. Now, screw head number 2 is Pozidrive. Now, Pozidrive looks like Phillips, but instead of just being a cross, you've basically got a cross with small diagonals in between each cross. Now, Pozidrive screws don't come out nowhere near like Phillips screws. They just hold a lot better, and you don't have to put so much pressure on to get that screw in that wood. And Pozidrive is actually my favourite. Now, one big mistake that people make is they use Phillips drive in a Pozidrive screw. Now, you put it in and you will think, well, this fits all right. Yeah, it will fit, but it will be slightly loose. And as soon as you start and put that screw in, it's going to strip. You're going to end up looking for a pair of pliers in your tool bag to get that stripped screw out. And then your 5-minute project is going to turn into an absolute nightmare. So as you can see on this image, on the left you've got Phillips and on the right you've got Pozidrive. So just by looking at them, you can clearly see the difference. One has just a cross and the other one has a cross with small diagonals, a bit like a star. Now, talking of stars, our next one is the Torx drive. Now, basically what a Torx drive is like a star. Unlike the Pozidrive screw, it's got 6 points of contact instead of 4, which means it's even less likely to come out than a Pozidrive screw. The only thing to think about when you're using Torx screws is make sure you've got the right driver. They basically come with a driver in the box, so it's not so bad. But if you're using a box that's already open, just make sure you've got the right torque. It's normally something like a T30 driver, but make sure you've got the right one for your screws. The bigger the screw, the bigger the torque size tends to go. So just make sure you've got one kicking about before you start your project. Now, the final drive that I want to look at, number 4, is square drive, which is basically, as it says, just a square. You do get them in some of the normal screws, but what you will commonly find them on is pocket hole screws. So if you use pocket holes, then you will find the driver for those is a square. Again, the squares do vary. On the smaller screws, you do get a smaller square drive than the bigger screws. They don't come out hardly at all, but just make sure you've got the right driver for your screw. Now, I get asked a lot, what size screws should I buy to start out doing woodwork and DIY? Don't go too big with your screws. I would go up to, say, an 100mm screw as your largest screw, and go down to sort of a 16mm screw for those small cabinet hinges and things like that. Ideally, get yourself one of these sets to start with. These are from screwshop.co.uk. There's a Torx bit drive one there, the turbo quick screws, and this is the normal Pozidrive one, the Rhino screws. I'll put a link down below so you can have a look at these and get yourself one. But that's an ideal way to start out, because you will find then which screws you use most. There will be some sizes you use tons of, and other sizes you don't use very often. So, of course, you want a lot more of the ones you use a lot of, and just an odd box kicking about of the other sizes. Now, let me know in comments what's your favourite drive. Is it the Phillips? It better not be. You better not be using those Phillips screws for woodwork. Is it the Pozidrive? Is it the Torx? Or is it the square drive? Let me know in comments. I'm really interested to know. So I hope that's helped you a bit about screw drives. Now keep watching over the next few weeks because we're going to be doing a lot more about screws. We're going to look at thread types. We're going to look at cutter screws. We're going to look at masonry screws. Every type of screw you can imagine. And don't forget, let me catch you using those Phillips screws for woodworking. And I'll see you lot on the next one.